Welcome to Inside the Canopy Files, a production of Canopy Realtors Association in Charlotte, North Carolina. In this special edition of Inside the Canopy Files, we take you behind the scenes for a one-on-one interview between Tiffany Johannes, the 2023 President of Canopy Realtors Association and Canopy MLS, and Christina Asbury. Christina was an educational speaker at the 2023 Realtor Expo held June 1st at the Charlotte Convention Center. Here's your host, Tiffany Johannes.
Our final accomplished speaker of the day with a unique real estate niche is Christina Asbury. Christina Asbury is one of only 630 accredited land consultants in the United States. She is knowledgeable in many respects of land sales, including 1031 tax exchanges, land planning and development, site analysis, land investment analysis, and more. Christina holds many designations and is certified, including the residential construction certification, and is also a certified new home specialist. With only 630 accredited land consultants in the United States, Christina is surely qualified to give us the 411 on land.
Yes.
Welcome, Christina.
Thank you so much for having me, Tiffany. I appreciate it.
Well, we are thrilled to be here, and I know our realtors and the community need to know more about land. And first of all, I want to just get a feel, how did you decide to become an accredited land consultant? And how long did it take you?
So I was licensed in 2004, and my initial broker in charge was very good about impressing upon me service to the industry through your local board and finding a niche and being a master of something, not a jack of all trades. So when I started looking at the different designations offered by NAR and all the institutes and societies, I came upon land. I mean, I'm a country girl. I actually grew up in Hickory. I grew up hunting. I grew up fishing. I still hunt and fish with my family. I'd rather be outside than in an office any day. So, land was a very natural path for me. Also, it helped that everybody at that point in time was an ABR. Everybody had a GRI in my market, but nobody had a land designation. So I'd rather, be a specialist in a niche and really hone my craft. So it was a really easy path for me to go. I enjoy it. No 2 days are the same and no two deals are the same.
Wow, that sounds like an exciting journey, and I look forward to hearing more about it as we progress today.
Yeah.
But first of all, the Realtor Code of Ethics and North Carolina and South Carolina real estate license law define land as a specialty. Why is that?
Well, land has different things than normal general residential brokerage. There are between 90 and 100 different points of information or things that might need to be disclosed or might be of importance to a land buyer or investor that aren't necessarily things that would apply to a house or a resale or even a new construction. So I am very happy that the code and license law actually denote land as a specialty, but we're in the same category as property managers, appraisers, auctioneers, commercial brokers. And it's nice to know that at least NAR and our state recognize that there's some extra steps you need to take if you're really going to practice in one of these specialty niches. And the education's out there, regardless of what path you want to take.
How long does it typically take to become accredited?
Well, that kind of depends. It is a very rigorous program. You've got to take over 100 hours worth of specialized land education. Our classes are typically at minimum $500 a piece, and they're minimum 2 days, 16 hours most of the time. You have to do a lot of land education, and there's a pretty comprehensive ALC portfolio for land sales that you have to meet as a requirement of land production to even be honored with the designation. Starting my path in 2005, 2006, I took a little bit of a different path than the people do today. We did not have the option for Zoom classes or virtual classes. I had to go to 5 different states and travel to those states on my own expense, on my own time, on my own dime, and go and take those classes in places like Atlanta and Charleston and Virginia and Tennessee. It took me a little over 2 years to get my designation. I had a pretty hefty production volume already to contribute to the portfolio. But, I would say most people if you really try hard and you fast track it and you cram the courses in, you could probably get the classwork done in under a year. But depending on your market and what type of land you deal with, it could take years to actually get the production requirements needed.
When you're dealing with land, it can take a long time for a land deal to close in certain cases. Can you tell us a little about the ins and outs of what land sales entail and some of the tools and some information that an agent looking to start selling land or get into the process of it might need to know?
Absolutely. Fun fact, North Carolina does not have any type of disclosure required on land.
And that is just crazy to me. Every time someone wants to list like a lot or something like that, and I think, I can't believe we don't have to disclose, well, the MOG.
Even mineral oil and gas.
And
exactly.
Why wouldn't you?
There is no requirement by state law for North Carolina. I can't speak to South Carolina, but North Carolina does not have any kind of requirement for any type of disclosure. So I kind of liken that to the residential property disclosure statement. As a general broker who's dealing with a lot of houses, you at least have those points on that property disclosure to double check. And hey, maybe I should really know the age of the HVAC, and maybe I should check on whether it's in a flood zone. There isn't anything necessarily in stone that gives you that kind of a checklist, but I look forward to going over one of the tools that I use in the class that I'm teaching later this afternoon. It's actually a commercial form that can be used as a worksheet. The first step is really knowing what you're selling. You got to read the deed. So many people don't read the deed. You need to understand the access, the easements. You need to understand the zoning, not only what it is now, but what can it be? What's the future land use plan? Is it developable? What's the highest and best use of the property? Are there things that need to be disclosed as far as subsurface rights, mineral oil and gas rights, life estates, perpetual leases, easements, all those different types of things? And then, it's not just as easy to sell land as unlocking a door and letting someone in a house. You've got to put on boots and you need to go and walk that piece of property. You need to try to find the corners. It takes a little bit more work and a little bit more field work to do land and to do it properly.
I like the idea of getting on the boots and checking the boundaries of the property and walking the entire property. You said you love to be outdoors. You love to live with the sun over you as opposed to in an office space. As someone who's looking to coordinate and develop those relationships to start selling land, what would you advise newcomers to the land business to look at first beyond getting on your boots?
Well, I think you've got to have the relationships with service providers, just like residential realtors have your home inspectors and your septic inspectors and, the stager and all of those people. Land professionals have the attorney who understands land. We have the surveyor who can actually get out there within a couple weeks. We have environmental engineers and soil engineers and qualified intermediaries for 1031s and all of these other different types of service providers that are special to a land transaction that most residential brokers would never even need.
And so if I'm a residential broker looking at something where someone asks me, hey, I've got a huge parcel of land, I'm not qualified to sell that huge parcel of land. Where would I find a qualified land consultant?
Well, that's a great question. RLIland.com is the website for the Realtors Land Institute. There is a find a land consultant section on that website. You can search by zip code. You can search by city or state. You can even nail it down to, I need somebody who specializes in wineries. All right. All of us fill out our profile pretty extensively to where you can find somebody who really knows what's going on. Our land group is a very diverse group of people. Like there's one gentleman who is one of my favorite people right now in Tennessee who really only does conservation easements. Okay. And it's really cool to have a realtor who not only does a niche like land, but also drums it down to the finite little tiny point of this man knows conservation easements inside and out, and those are nationwide. So if I've got an issue with something down at the beach, I can definitely call him. We've got specialists in, ranch properties and horse properties, recreational properties. So really just about any kind of land need or land professional you need, whether it's timber, agricultural, actual agribusiness, we've got somebody for you. And that Find a Land Consultant tool on RLIland.com is really a great resource to find someone in your area. And even if they don't have the ALC designation, you can find somebody who is at least a member of RLI or maybe on the path to pursuing their ALC designation.
That sounds like a great resource.
Yeah.
As we're here in North Carolina and a lot of our members are also licensed in South Carolina or do business in South Carolina, what are some of the challenges or things that accredited land consultants face or see day in and day out in North Carolina or South Carolina?
Oh, the biggest one that I'll say is horrible marketing of land by people who don't know how to market land. That is probably my favorite part of my session that I'm going to teach later today. I'm going to show you some really horrible examples of land marketing and why one picture of a tree with a street sign is not an appropriate main view photo for a 65-acre parcel valued at $3 million.
One picture with a tree, 65 acres, $3 million.
Yeah. And it's only been on the market 3,000 days. I wonder why.
It sounds like there could be a realtor ethics violation in the works there.
Maybe. I mean, and it even comes down to showing instructions. When you've got a house, it's don't let the cat out. Make sure you turn off the lights. Leave a card. With land, it's do I need a 4-wheel drive? Is there a gate? Is there a hunting lease? Is it hunting season? Should I wear high-vis clothing? So there's a lot of different things there that we see people who don't have land experience in their marketing and their advertising that could really be done better. I think the other differentiating factor, in the beginning you mentioned that it can take a long time for a land transaction to close. It can, depending on how much work gets done on the front end. I put a lot of work. There's probably 30 days worth of research and work that go into my listings before they ever hit the market because I want to truly understand what I'm selling. And I think that is one of the biggest things that anybody can do when you're selling a parcel of land. Just like with the house, you're going to find out where are the property corners, what's going on, is the road going to get widened, all those things. With land, we need to see what kind of entitlements are there or could be gotten for the property, and also what the property will perform at. Is there a septic permit? Is there a survey? Is the legal description even still accurate? One of the biggest issues that I run into with land is the ownership of it. Nobody read the deed to notice that it's an heir property and the estate was never opened. And how many heirs do we really have? And I have literally had situations where a closing gets completely thrown off and it can't happen because we find a long-lost stepbrother in another state that's unable to sign because he's under duress. So really knowing what you're selling, going back to read the deed. Sometimes you need a pre-listing title search. A lot of people get pre-listing home inspections or pre-listing appraisals. One of the biggest things that is one of my pre-listing tools is a pre-listing title search, especially with heir and estate properties, to make sure that I have everybody there. Because what happens if I don't have all the signers? Contractually, I can't have my sellers comply with their obligations in the contract by providing good title with legal access prior to the date of closing. Right. So if I don't do that type of research, I'm potentially setting my sellers up for a breach of contract and financial consequences. And then I don't get paid either. So, sometimes you can just put in a little bit of work in advance and make sure that you can ensure a smoother, more streamlined closing that actually gets paid.
A little bit of due diligence goes a long way and not disappointing everyone involved.
Yeah. I would say a lot of due diligence.
A lot.
Goes a long way.
Not just a little, a lot of due diligence. That property report and doing the title search, whether you're doing land or you're selling a residential home, is huge in making sure you understand what's going on with the property. Yep. And I don't see a lot of people in our industry doing that. And that, I think, is one huge takeaway today, whether you're selling land or whether you're selling someone's personal property that's their residence. Get the title search, get the property report to make sure you understand the chain of title and what's happened.
Especially if it's an estate property or an heir property. Yes.
Definitely. What would you say you see most often? I mean, when you're doing a land contract for a large tract of land, does it typically start with an offer to purchase or a letter of intent, or what do you see on the front end of a land deal?
So it depends on the type of land. So if I'm dealing with a large parcel, like let's say it's agricultural timber, it's not a development tract. That one generally going to be an offer to purchase and vacant lot and land contract. Depending on what the buyer client needs to get done, depends on how long your dates might be run. But if you're dealing with something that has a very high potential for development, letters of intent, let's face it, they're not as good as the paper they're written on. it's a pinky promise. It's a Scout's honor swear at that point. Letters of intent are not really taken seriously by true land sellers. What we will do, though, is if I've got a large development tract and then I have it under contract with a developer, then that developer would get letters of intent from builders that say, hey, developer, if you develop this property, I'll take down 50 of those lots for you. Absolutely. Then it gives that buyer, that developer buyer, some solace knowing that there's an interest from these third-party buyers, builder buyers, on the lots that they're able to produce on this property if they're able to produce them. But if an actual buyer brings a letter of intent, it's as good as a verbal offer. I want to see something on paper.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you have a lot of buyers coming to the table for land sales that want to rezone the property? And what does that look like?
Yes, absolutely. And, there's a fine line there between not necessarily showing the seller all your cards, because the seller really doesn't need to know what you're going to do with the property necessarily, and still participating with the seller, because you can't just go rezone my property without my autograph.
No, you can't.
So there's a little bit of a waltz and a little bit of a dance that has to happen there. But yes, I have worked with clients to get properties rezoned. I have worked with clients during contract to get properties annexed into a municipality to get favorable zoning over the county, maybe. Annexing into a municipality is not always about water and sewer. Sometimes it's about getting the right zoning that you need, or a friendlier inspections department that's more streamlined and gets things done faster. But I've worked with clients getting special use permits for things that might not traditionally be allowed by right. It's a fun process. And that goes back to having relationships with the town managers and the planning directors and your zoning enforcement officers and your code enforcement officers, and being able to call them and be like, hey, let me run something by you. I feel like a really valuable relationship is county staff. County planning and zoning staff is a huge relationship to have as a land realtor. I'm even the person who volunteers to be on my planning board of adjustments, who overhears the special use permits and variances, so that I can learn a little bit about those types of industries. Serving on the Onslow County Board of Adjustments a few years ago, I learned some really valuable information about how solar farms are designed and engineered, and what happens at the end of the lease and how that gets taken back. I was able to learn a lot about how they do cell phone and communication towers, because most of those are special use permits or variances. So I would encourage anybody who wants to get involved in the land business, or even if you maybe already are involved, see if there's opportunities at your city or county in the planning department or the board of adjustments or the planning board to get involved. You can be an asset to them because you see things from a different perspective. And you can also learn a lot as well, and form some valuable relationships that may be beneficial in your business.
Well, as I think about only 630 accredited land consultants in the United States, and all you've shared over the last 15 to 25, 30 minutes, I'm thinking you need to be accredited to sell land. If you're just dabbling in it, you need to take to heart what Christina has said today, and make sure that you're referring out land deals, that you're thinking through what you're selling, and that you're making the right decision if you're stepping up to the plate on a land deal.
And I'll be honest, you don't always have to refer it out. I co-list with a lot of people. I get brokers that come to me. I work for a really large firm, and, they'll go to their broker in charge at another office and say, hey, I've got this land listing. And they'll say, you need to call Asbury and work with her. So the thing is that the license law and the code doesn't necessarily say thou shalt not sell land if thou are not accredited. You shouldn't practice unless you're engaging the assistance of someone who has knowledge in that specialty. And sometimes it's not your broker in charge. Sometimes it might not be your owner. But I'll just about bet you everybody in North or South Carolina has a land professional. Even if they're not an ALC designee, you have a land professional somewhere near your market that you can at least work with. And like I say, I've got co-listings with other agents right now, and it works out well because my marketing expertise and my knowledge helps them learn. And if you will go to someone like me or a land professional and say, hey, look, I've got this buyer, or I've got this seller, I want to learn. I'll do all the legwork. Will you co-list it with me? Can we work it together? Can you mentor me and teach me a little bit about what needs to be done? I love those. I love the opportunity to be able to teach someone and to make them better. So don't be afraid to not necessarily refer it, but I mean, at least ask. Ask to be involved in the process so that you learn a little bit more about it.
That's a great suggestion. Paying it forward, making a difference by really learning and putting that best boot forward as you get out there to take a look at properties.
Yeah.
I know your session will be illuminating and will help our agents decide if they're ready to get their hands dirty and to put their boots on and understand where to find the best land professionals for referrals and to decide whether land professional designation as an accredited land consultant and being the 631st land consultant makes a difference for them.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure having you here, Christina. I think it'll be eye-opening to a number of our members, and I hope that they will take the information you've shared and use it in their day-to-day transactions. And if they're ready to get their boots on, that's great. Or if they're ready to refer, they know how to do that.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
So if you could, just tell me your name and who you're representing here today.
Yes, Corinne Bowman from Keller Williams.
Okay, awesome. Corinne, tell me about how you're enjoying the Canopy Expo here today.
It's an amazing event. I always love it. One, it's just great for the network, the connections. In addition to that, the knowledge, the intake, and just to be able to come together, collaborate, and mind share.
That's awesome. Do you feel like you've learned anything here today in particular that you're going to be able to take with you and help you out on your journey?
Yeah, so many things. I'm so excited to actually take this information back to my market center, back to my firm, back to our agents, so we can start making sure that we're using the tactical strategies that we've learned today to really start applying it back into our business.
Okay, cool. How long have you been a realtor?
Since 2012.
Okay. So that's over a decade now. How do you feel conferences like these bring value to what you do?
Great question. It brings a lot of value because it's an opportunity to, one, re-engage, re-energize, and literally just be able to just mind share, right? It's about the collection of data, information, ideas, strategies, tools, resources, and that's what we do here. And I feel like these conferences are needed, right? It allows us to really to inspire and to empower us through tools and resources that we can use for our business.
Fantastic. And for the realtors who couldn't be here today, what would you say to them as to why they should be here next year?
This is an event you do not want to miss. You should all be here. It's an amazing experience, and I hope to see you there 2024.
Fantastic. Thanks, Corinne.
All right, thanks.
Hey, can you tell me your name and what realty company you're representing today?
Sure. I'm Nigel Wilson, and I'm with Allen Tate in Concord.
Thank you, Najee. Tell us, how has your experience here today been at the Canopy Expo?
So this was my first time, and it was, I don't know what I was expecting, but there were a lot of vendors that I could use. So I saw a structural engineer, and there was a time when I was looking for a structural engineer. So it was great to get their information and just talk to them about their work, where they, kind of like the territory that they cover, their response time and that kind of stuff. And just saw a few other vendors that would be helpful for me in my business. And ran into a few people that I didn't know they were realtors. So, got to see some friends and colleagues.
Very cool. And how important are relationships like that to you as a professional, as a realtor?
So having vendors that I can call on is really important because, like I said, there are times when you may need a structural engineer. You obviously are going to need an inspector. And so I may have an inspector that I use now, but they might be busy. So being able to, build a relationship with another vendor to provide the service when the person that I would normally use is busy is really helpful because it, I won't lose any time trying to find someone because I already have another vendor that I could call on.
Fantastic. And since this is your first time here, what would you say to other realtors who weren't able to make it out this year, haven't been to the expo before? Hopefully, when they come next year, what can you tell them to expect?
You get lots of information. There are a lot of mortgage providers here, and they all have different products, which could be very helpful for your clients. And it's just good to know as a realtor, like different types of lending options for clients that you'd be speaking with and servicing. And so there's that. There's also, connecting with other vendors that like I said, you may have one, but you need another one. And then just seeing what other vendors are out there that could provide service to us and our clients.
Fantastic. Najee, thanks so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
First of all, could you tell me your name and who you're representing today?
Annabelle Camerata with Coldwell Banker Realty.
Annabelle, how long I'm assuming you're a realtor?
Yes.
Okay. How long have you been a realtor?
3 years now.
Okay, cool. How are you enjoying the expo here today?
Actually, it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome. The vendors are great. The speakers have been fantastic. A lot of new information. This AI is very eye-opening, I guess you could say. So, yeah.
It sure is. And is this your first time to the Canopy Expo?
Actually, it's my second Canopy Expo, yes.
Okay, great. And talk a little bit about the AI session. What did you find interesting about it that you think you could use in the future?
Just help with writing listing descriptions, finding information so fast, proper wording, proper wording when dealing with certain clients and stuff, and just individual, even agents. The DISC, personality profile. I was a hairdresser for 30 years, so I've done some personality stuff before, so it does really help to know your client's personality and how to best make them feel comfortable. So, but yeah, so yeah, it was really good. I'm looking forward to the land. The speaker on the land right now. I can't think of her name at the moment, but yeah. So Christina, yeah. So just a lot of great information, and met a lot of nice agents too. So I love the networking part of it also.
Fantastic. What do you think the value is in being able to come to one place and meeting with other realtors, other vendors, making those connections and relationships?
With the vendors, you just put more resources in your arsenal. And with meeting other realtors, it's, you never know when you're going to come across them in a deal, and already having a relationship with them is very helpful. We're all in this to get the same result, get it closed. So having a relationship already kind of makes it a little bit easier.
That's a good way to look at it. We're all tied into the same end result. And last question, what would you say to the other realtors who may not have been able to make it here today, and why they should come out next year?
I know it takes a lot of time out of your day. Even this morning myself, I was like, oh my gosh. But it turned my mind around once I got here. And seeing all the new vendors, seeing, the new stuff with Canopy that I didn't know about, speaking to new, other agents, whether they're new agents or seasoned agents. It's just so many different personalities and so many different ways of looking at things. So you just gain a lot of perspective on what's going on in everybody else's world too.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And yeah.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Inside the Canopy Files, presented by Canopy Realtor Association in Charlotte, North Carolina. Connect with us online at carolinahome.com.